Welcome aboard, everybody. Evan Valenti back here on Celtics Beat. No Adam this week. Adam is tied up at work, and sometimes stuff happens, and that's why you have producers and co-hosts who can pitch hit and have the show and everything keep moving as smoothly and as soonly possible. And with that, we welcome on our guest today. It joins us quite frequently. Barstool Sports Dan Greenberg coming off. Dan, you and I were just talking about a pre-show. It's always nice when the Celtics beat Kyrie Irving. 9 straight wins over the Nets, Always nice to see that. And you mentioned pre-show. Kyrie hasn't been good in like any of these games outside of game 1 in the playoffs where he was spectacular.
Yeah, honestly, it's ever since he stepped on Lucky, things have just, Red Auerbach's getting his revenge. It's kind of freaky. It's like,
it is weird.
It would be one thing if he was still giving them problems and the Celtics were still winning. But it is a little, I don't think anyone is still really caught up in the Kyrie drama. It's been so long, but it is nice. You'd be lying if you said it wasn't nice to win, but also see him go 9 for 24. Like, that's the good stuff.
Totally agree with that. Totally. It is a win's a win. I always like wins, but these ones are just a little extra special, Speaking of special, this show's going to be a little different. I've been thinking about our show. And I'd like to try out something a little different for the audience, whether you're listening or watching at home. So this format today is going to be slightly different because we are once a week, and we're in the midway point of the season, which we'll get later on in the show. We're going to talk about Dan put together 41 stone cold facts.
Can't deny them.
The season so far.
Both good and bad. Both good and bad. Let's preface that.
Yeah, and look, I have, as you saw in the Google Doc, I got a section of good, a section of the ones I don't like. So we're going to talk about that later in the program. But being once a week, we miss out on the daily grind of here's what happened last night, here's what happened last night, here's what happened last night. So what we're going to do here, we're going to split this up into 2 parts. First part's going to be like since last time we talked, and then we're going to focus more on Dan's piece and the 41 facts that can explain the Celtics season so far. So with that being said, since we last spoke on the show, again, a week ago today. So last week on Friday, Celtics came off a big win against Dallas. The Celtics have won 4 games in a row. It's really been 5. And they've won 9 of the last 11 thanks to the 109-98 win against the Nets last night. No Jaylen Brown for the Celtics last night wasn't really a big problem. And it wasn't
Al Horford. Don't forget Al.
No, that's Al right. Horford. Yep, missing 2 fits to start 11. No Al Horford last night. So those 2 absences, big for Boston. Jalen's been on a roll. We'll get to that a little bit later. An off night for Jayson Tatum, and I love how an off night, Dan, is 20, 11, and 5.
I know. It's crazy. It just shows how ridiculous the standard and the well-deserved standard is for him.
Right.
When like almost any other player in the league, 20, 11, and 5 is all-star production. And for him, it's like, man, he kind of threw up a stinker. It's insane how good he is.
Yeah.
That's a bad game. It's crazy.
The only thing that I'm kind of disappointed in is the lack of, like, he just had one bad game, like how everybody treated Giannis the other night, where he had 7, 12 and 11 or whatever he had the other night. I forget what he had, like 20 rebounds the other night, but he only had 7 points. He had a terrible day, and everybody was
I don't think Richard Jefferson's going on ESPN today talking about how Tatum was tired.
Whatever. Going off
a
back-to-back, and he carries such a huge offensive load for them without Jaylen Brown. Whatever. We're not going to be that petty. But an off night for Tatum, 20, 11, and 5, 7 of 22 shooting. The 3-ball wasn't going, but I liked a lot of what he did. Again, what's been fun to watch has been just how quickly he gets off these double teams. And I just laugh at that quote from Booker of not wanting to play double teams in like the summertime. And I just watched Jayson get double teamed pretty much every time he had the ball on the court. So
it's important. He doesn't seem like he gets sped up anymore, right?
Not anymore.
Or when you could send 2 at him, he maybe rushed it, he maybe forced things. Now it's almost like he welcomes a double team because he already knows where he's going with the ball. So it's like you're only asking for trouble because now you're not getting him, double, maybe rethinking it or rushing his process. He kind of knows where he's going to go before the double even comes, and it's basically taking away that weapon.
Yeah, it's been awesome. And when they have Jaylen on the floor, it's hard to double him because you got 2 guys out there that can drop 30 in an instant. But last night, not about Jaylen, not about Jayson Tatum. Last night, all about either the bench guys or guys that are normally reserves playing starting roles last night. Malcolm Brogdon, 16, 5, and 2. Derek White, 15 and 7, and another weak side block for Derek White. 11 points for Luke Cornett, 12 points for Grant Williams. And look, I know
Pritchard had 9.
You stole my thunder. Pritchard, 9 points, but 3 ginormous offensive rebounds last night, and most importantly, gave this team just energy off the bench that they needed, considering coming off the back-to-back. Some guys weren't, some guys were dragging a little bit. But last night is once again proof that when they lock in, this bench is one of the best, if not the best in the league, Greenie.
Yeah, and honestly, let's say Jaylen's out. I'm going to say 2 weeks just because I always expect the worst when the Celtics give me a timeline. It's always worse than what they did. So let's say he's out for 2 weeks, and that's, a handful of games. You have to find a way to replace 28 a game on 50% shooting. And the only way to do that is if the others, that's what you want to call them, they have to find a way to contribute, and they have to find a way to be efficient when they do it. That given the attention he's going to get defensively, that you're going to see some, 9 of 22, whatever. Tatum may not always be the most efficient because now teams can load up on him. So it's imperative that guys like Brogdon, White, that they're touching the paint and finding ways to, really get the most out of their offensive possessions. And you're not just settling for threes, or you're not taking contested jumpers. I thought everybody had the right approach last night. I mean, even Grant is making plays off the dribble to get to the rim. Like, those are the things that because bench scoring and second unit role players, there's going to be some fluctuation in, you're not going to get what we saw last night every single game, right? Because they're role players that comes and goes. But to get it on a back-to-back on the road against a team that's been playing great on both ends of the floor, like, that's a pretty big performance, especially to cover up for Tatum's off night, so to speak. That's how they're going to survive without Jaylen, is to do it as a collective unit.
Yeah, and for me, it's mostly I think it's the most important that Brogdon stays where he's at right now. Yeah, Brogdon, as you can see, coming off the bench, giving them a guy that can handle the basketball, get to the rim, make good plays. His continued good play the past 5 or 6 games, he's been really good ever since Joe Mazzulla called him not playing well. Brogdon's been the guy, and for me, the guy that's going to shoulder the brunt of that scoring load is going to be Brogdon. I mean, I know White in times, but White's jump shot comes and goes unless he's in the corner. He's lethal. You can't expect Grant to do a whole ton as a spot-up three-point shooter. Again, the drives are nice. He had a great finish last night. I forget who was in front of him, but he basically went right through his chest and finished a really tough shot. And you can't expect Luke Cornett to drop 11 points a game. It's just not going to – I mean, the fact that he plays is surprising itself, but for him to drop 11 last night, including the backwards alley-oop, that was totally a goaltend, but we're going to ignore that.
Listen, they owed us 2 points.
Oh, they did.
All right, so we're
basketball gods always get it right. There you go. But to me, it's mostly about Brogdon last night. I thought just the pace he plays with, he attacks the basket. He is a really good three-point shooter when he's got his feet set the right way. And he just, the constant attack on the rim is really, really, really important for this team. You had a stat, and I didn't put it in my favorite stats. Why not? I don't know. I don't particularly know why, but when you have guys getting to the basket or at least attacking the rim, and you're one of the best free throw shooting teams in the league, Danny, that's just big time stuff. And I think if you had to make an argument of which of the guys was the most impactful, I would say Brogdon by quite a bit, I think.
Yeah, I would love to know, in there, because he struggled for a month, right? And when you watched him, it never really made sense because it almost was like he forgot that he was really good at basketball, right? He would have the ball, and I felt like he overpassed a little bit, or he just wasn't playing with that confidence where it's what are you doing, man? You're a 20-point per game scorer. That you're here to, I wanted him to be empowered to look for his own shot. Over the last 5-6 games, like you said, it just feels like he's playing with a different approach where, sure, he could play make, he could find guys, he's a great passer, all that's true. But the biggest difference is now he's coming off high picks and he's looking to pull up from that mid-range jumper. I feel like he's taking the responsibility of being that scorer first with that bench unit. And that's where I think we're really going to see his value. It's like he is so good at getting to the basket. He's so good at using his size to have that little combo floater game. He's a great free throw shooter. When he struggled, it's when he just like decided to not use some of his best skills. And it was almost like he didn't want to get in the way. I would love to know if like in a film session, whether it was like the Tatum or the players or the coaching staff, like did anybody empower him to be like, hey, Malcolm, you're a really good player. It's okay if you have like 3 or 4 minute stretch where you are the number one option on that second unit because he's proving he can carry that load. And we weren't seeing that during his month-long struggles. It's like he was apprehensive to shoot. That helped him lose his rhythm. So then he would get like a wide open layup and he like wouldn't know what to do. Now you're just watching a guy that like he's playing with a purpose. And I think that's made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, and the struggling stuff, it was like mind-blowingly bad decisions. Like he would dribble for a few seconds, take a contested pull-up three with like 17 seconds left in the shot.
It was so bizarre based on how he played to start the year, where it's just like, okay, maybe everyone goes through slumps. That's fine, but with Jaylen out, him snapping out of that, I mean, he's not going to shoot 50-something% from three forever. So like. That's the part where you have to expect some variance, but the approach is what I care about more. And we're seeing a much more aggressive Brogdon, and it's made all the difference.
Yeah, him attacking the basket is a huge deal. But again, it takes a village. Took everybody last night, especially Payton Pritchard, who just, again, the offensive rebounding thing, I don't know what it is with him, but he has a knack for offensive rebounds at like 6'1", and I've never seen really before.
I think part of it is teams are forgetting to block him out, and then they don't realize that he's a freaking maniac and he's going to throw his body in. He doesn't give a shit that he doesn't care that he's, 5 feet, whatever. Like that's just high energy and effort. And I think when you're struggling maybe with your shot or you're not playing a lot and your rhythm is, because like that play against the Pelicans where he just totally botched a fast break, 3-on-1 fast break. That's just him not playing and not having a feel. So like, when you're fighting all those things, the easiest thing you can do is just play super hard. And we saw playing super hard is what got him back into a rhythm. That twitchy crossover pull-up where the jumper had like a 35-foot arc, that is why you don't
over Claxton, right? It was over Claxton.
Yeah, that play alone is why you don't trade Payton Pritchard. Yeah.
I'll end on Pritchard with this quote from Brad that resurfaced this week about how the game rewards toughness. And how the game rewards guys that work hard. That's just the living spirit of that right there. Because again, you're right. Payton, I think, understands that his role on this team is very limited. Like Payton will only play if somebody's hurt, but he knows that his next opportunity will come if he plays hard and if he makes these energy plays, like getting offensive rebounds. Like he just knows his role and he understands. That's the one thing, communicating everybody's role and everybody understands what they're doing. This team has got that figured out way earlier than last year. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. The continuity of this team has been a big, big reason why they're here where they are.
And I think their success sort of encourages everybody to buy into that role, right? Like if the Celtics were 500 and they weren't winning, you would probably have some issues in terms of role, but no, like Payton Pritchard's not going to be the guy that like messes up the chemistry because things are going so well. Brogdon's not going to rock the boat because things are going well. It's just Smart's not going to all of a sudden be upset with his role. So I think the winning is probably the biggest factor of that.
Winning cures everything, Dan, as you know. Last point about this game. This is actually maybe one of the biggest things from this game, and not a lot of people are talking about it. But once again, the Celtics held an opponent to under 100 points. It's the third time in the last 5 games they've done so. And now their defense per cleaning the glass is 4th. They're tied with Philly at 111.6 per 100 possessions. Yep. Dan, the defense figured it out.
I know. Well, I feel like the last time we talked, we talked about like, are there concerns over the defense? And it's almost like everyone had amnesia where it's like when you go into a season and you have a new system, new coach, whatever, the offense always, shows up before the defense does. It takes time for guys to adapt to the system, to find that balance. That's no different this year than it was last year with Ime. So it's like, guys, just take a deep breath. Here we are. They've been third in the NBA on NBA.com since December. So it's like, it's not just, they got Rob back. They were, defending at a high level, even the 2 weeks prior to Rob coming back. It's just a matter of understanding that defense is about continuity, and it's about, cleaning up mistakes and understanding where certain guys are going to be. And every year is new. So it's like, just because they were elite last year, you have to almost forget that and relearn it each season. We're seeing what they look like when they've figured out what everyone has to do. And if they're going to be a top 5 offense, top 5 defense, top 5 in assist percentage, like, they're checking off all the boxes we wanted them to check to become a legitimate contender. And it's just great to see, because it should only get better as Rob gets his conditioning, as guys, get healthy, as they feel more confident. Maybe their schedule lightens up a little bit. So, I think any worry you had maybe in like November about their defense should not exist anymore.
Well, what I'll say is it does help to have Rob back. And the one thing we should probably mention, Rob, 29 minutes last night. And I mean, Scal kept bringing it up in the game that, Rob was clearly going to go past whatever minutes restriction they had for him. Last night, 29 minutes, his, I believe, season high so far. I don't think he's come close to even touching that. Just a real quick search. Yeah, 29 minutes is the most he's played so far this year. So good to see Rob out there. But it's not shocking to me. It's not shocking to you that their defense has taken a whole different leap since Rob's been in the building. And with him and Smart and Tatum out there at the same time, those are just – I mean, they have plus defenders all over the place, but those 3 guys specifically, and then Derek White's ability to block guys on the weak side, like this is they have the pieces to do it. They have all these unbelievably switchy, twitchy guys, long guys to make this defense really work. Some of the off-ball stuff is really great, but Rob just, there's several things about Rob that make me laugh. The defense and the passing, both on display last night.
The defense, the passing, I just think there are sometimes he's like a little too excited. I mean, he throws absolute lasers. So it's like, I love the idea, but I think he just gets so amped up to make the right play. I think it was a turnover. I think he was passing to, maybe it was like a cutting Brogdon or.
It was, he had a stretch. I was texting about this with Kaufman and our buddy Landman. He came in with like 3:20 to go in the half. And between that and like 2:15, he had 3 and the one to Brogdon, like he could have dunked it or like.
That's what I was going to say. When he's right there, like just take the little float.
But at the same time, if Brogdon had caught it, Brogdon would have had a wide open layup. Right. So it's like, Rob, just shoot it next time. But at the same time, like, wasn't a bad play. Brogdon be ready for that. But then he had 2 other passes later on. Again, he doesn't get the assist for that because it pings around a couple of times. But Rob's ability to start the set that like gets somebody an open shot, like you can't overlook that and how special it is for your center of all guys to be doing that. And the Celtics have like 2 guys that can do that.
Well, that's what I mean. How about the little Cornet no look, the bounce pass? I mean, that's so good. That's your 3rd string center that's making that play. So
good.
I just think Rob, he's so amazing, and he plays with so much joy and passion and energy. He just has to remember, like, you're throwing absolute lasers from like 2 feet away. Just take it down like half a notch and you'll be fine.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun watching Rob out there for sure. And again, this defense really starting to turn it around and really, run into form. Since we also last spoke, I do want to touch briefly on the New Orleans game, 125-114, mainly because Jaylen Brown was insane. 41 points, 12 rebounds on 15 of 21. Anybody wants to give me any flack about him having 0 assists in that game can go pound sand. Do not care. He had 18 and 10 at halftime. I put the question in the rundown here, Greenie. Was it his best game as a pro? His best this year for sure.
I don't know if that was his best as a pro. We've seen him do some crazy stuff.
Yeah, I got the list. 37, 14, and 5 versus Miami this year in that loss in overtime. Jimmy Butler was insane. He had 46, 9, and 6 to open last year. That was against the Knicks in a loss, but it was crazy. Had 50, 11, and 4 against Orlando on January 2nd last year. So a year ago, almost to the day. in overtime against Orlando, a 40-point game against Lakers 2 years ago, 49-3 against the Sixers 2 seasons ago. So he's had some insane games, but this one from like a will standpoint, like Jaylen just put it down on New Orleans that night.
You know what it reminded me of? And I don't want to bring up, I'm nervous to even say the words. It reminded me of his game one in the finals. In that fourth quarter where he just put the team on his back and willed them. Like, there was no stopping him in the mid-range. There's no stopping him getting him from the rim. It was just, he was playing possessed. And I think when Jaylen gets in those modes, like, again, if you're complaining that he didn't have any assists, like, you just aren't understanding him.
Find a new sport. Like, just find a new sport. This is not the sport for you.
There are going to be games where he has 4 or 5 assists. Great. There are also going to be games where his sole purpose in those 48 minutes is to get buckets. Like, and the way when he's efficient and he's aggressive and there isn't a shot he can take that I'm like, Jaylen, that wasn't the best shot, because I've seen him hit them all. So as long as he's remaining aggressive and getting into his spots, that's all I care about.
Yeah, and the big thing out of this for me, besides Jaylen Brown just being insane, and again, just the luxury of having Jaylen and Jayson combined for like 60 a night is just unbelievable. In that game, 72, Tatum had 31 by himself.
Well, that's another Tatum game. You're like, he didn't really play that well. And you look down, he's got 30 and 10 and 4. And you're like, what is happening?
He had Tatum that night, 32, 8 and 7, and Jaylen 41 and 12. Like, you know, and this is the bigger point I want to make is this team between these two guys, I don't think we're making a big enough deal. I mean, I think Celtics fans are. I think like you have done this, and I think a lot of Celtics fans are just pounding the table for this. I just don't think there's enough national recognition here. Jaylen and Jayson, I'm pulling up a thread here that I gotta look for. But Jaylen and Jayson are currently averaging 58 points a game, roughly, right? It was approximately 58 points per game, which is insane. But how insane is that really? Well, I went back and looked it up because, you know, I was really curious in terms of, you know, how, in terms of the greatest duos of the past 20, 30 years, what that looks like. So peak Kobe.
It's probably them and like Shaq and Kobe.
Peak Kobe and Shaq, which is like 2000 to 2003, hovered around 57 and 58 a game. Okay. That's peak Kobe and Shaq. Shaq, one of the most dominant players I've ever seen in my entire life, right? More guys like that. Peak KD and Russ combined for 51.6 a game. Peak LeBron.
Is that during KD's MVP year?
Yeah, I would guess, yeah. Peak LeBron and Wade, 52.6. Peak Yao and T-Mac, 49.6.
Yeah.
Jays are at 58, and I threw this out there. I'm like, you know, the Jays are a Tatum like run away from averaging 60 a game combined. Yeah. And
I would say the thing with that is, I mean, the numbers are ridiculous. You do have to sort of adjust with the era, right? Like in the early 2000s, Shaq and Kobe did that, like, you know, without really taking threes. So, but that just shows you like how good they are at 3-level scorers, that they're putting up that high of an amount. I would just say, you know, earlier and younger me would be pretty bothered. Like I saw the Ringer put out like the top 20 player list and Jaylen wasn't on it. Like stuff like he's going to make an all-NBA team. I'm pretty sure he's top 20, but like that stuff, I don't care as much anymore. Like that, you know, if the Celtics aren't talked about like by ESPN, by talking heads, like for me, we've moved past that. We're contending for titles now. Like that is my singular focus, where before I probably would have written like a 10,000 word blog that Jaylen wasn't on this top 20 list. Like, I just think we know what they are. We know how good they are. I don't need Stephen A. Smith to tell me that Jaylen Brown is good. Like, I know Jaylen Brown is good. I care about, is this team doing what it needs to do to ensure that, you know, they have as good a chance as any to get back to the finals. Like, if Tatum doesn't start the All-Star game because of some positional voting weirdness, like, whatever. I'm past caring about that. If he doesn't win MVP, like, I think he's a legitimate candidate, but like, whatever. I think everyone between the fans and the players should be on the same page where like the only thing that matters is, are they stacking up wins? Are they healthy? And are they going to be ready for when the games truly matter? That's truly all that matters.
Selfishly, though, like I like to listen to other people tell me how awesome my team is, just from a selfish standpoint, because, I have, these long walks with my dog, and I like to put content on, I'll throw podcasts on all the time. And let me tell you, I do go hunting some, like today, when I go walk my dog, I'm going to hunt a little bit for like, who talked to the Celtics this morning or this afternoon that I can like put on and geek out to and smile for a while, just because, look, I know how good they are. I just want you to understand as the viewer, or you as the national media understand how good these C's are and how historic what Jaylen and Jayson are doing at 24 and 26 right now. Like it's the best possible outcome you could ask for shy of winning a title right now. I
will ask you this, though.
Sure.
Interesting how there's no, anonymous sources that seem to be doing any sort of leaking.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting how, when you're the best team in the NBA, suddenly, Jason Tatum isn't a selfish player. Suddenly there isn't any issues between Tatum and Brown. It does make you wonder a little bit.
Yeah, well, look, the clip that I love is like, I think it's the NBC Sports Boston sit down where they're both, chilling next to each other. And Jaylen's like, well, I want to win. Hey man, you want to win? He wants to win too. So yeah, I think we're good. Like I go back to that. I'm like, I think we're going to be all right.
Well, it's funny because I don't know if I tweeted out after the Pelicans game, there was the response by Joe when Washburn was trying to ask him the question of like, how do you manage the dynamic of two guys it's like, listen, man, things are great. There are no issues. What are you doing?
Yeah. I see what Gary was trying to do. Like, I totally understand that. But I appreciate Joe for just being like, bro, are you kidding me right now? This team has the best record in the league. We're not going to start talking about drama between Jaylen and Jayson because there isn't any right now. We're doing really well.
I couldn't help but laugh at that. It's like, you can really tell when things are good when you're trying to scrape the bottom like that. So
yeah. Shout out to Grant Williams on that game. He had 20 points, his first big Grant game of the year. And then also Tatum and Brown, if you go back to the Spurs win, they combined for 64 in that game. These guys are ridiculous. As I said yesterday, I had that big thread of, duos and stuff. If you just enjoy the ride, guys, it's just a lot of fun. Just enjoy the ride.
We're seeing things that like my dad didn't even see in his coming of age year. Like we're seeing generational play in terms of what the best Celtics duos of all time have done. Yeah. The only thing that's missing is the title, and they look pretty good as an outside favorite. So
well on their way there. But we're gonna take a quick break. Tell you today's show, new sponsor brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why they're America's #1 meal kit. Look, I hate going to the grocery store on Sundays, especially because it's an absolute zoo. You will never find me there. You're always going to find me there when there's not a lot of people there. With HelloFresh, I don't have to go anywhere. It comes to me. You have New Year's goals out there, and HelloFresh wants to help you achieve them. Skip the grocery store, take control of your time and your budget with delicious recipes delivered right to your door, and healthy ones at that. If you're looking to find an easy way to eat well, save money, cut back on expensive takeout. Takeout's insane. DoorDash, holy moly, you could rack up huge bills with DoorDash. Trust me, I have. And you can start with HelloFresh today. You love how fast, easy, affordable it is to whip up a restaurant-quality meal right in your own kitchen. So they sent me a nice little gift box, HelloFresh. I appreciate that, guys. With every box, you get a little card that looks like this, okay? This is a recipe card. It's going to give you all the details of all the ingredients inside the box and what it's going to approximately look like when it's done. Kudos to this person. This is the hardest part of the whole thing, by the way, this little dressing here. And then it gives the instructions on the back. So what I decided to do last night after the season, when I was feeling good about myself, feeling confident, was I made this crunchy curry chickpea bowl, which is super healthy for you. I made it. It's right here. You can kind of see it right here. It's excellent. The one thing I'll tell you is, Evan, what does it taste like? If you've been to New York City, or any major city, but I use New York a lot because you'll see these all the time. I call them street meat carts. You know what I'm talking about, Greenberg,
halal
carts. If you order your basic, like, lamb or chicken with rice and salad and like whatever sauce on top. This is what this is. Basically, right at your very doorstep. Easy to make, doesn't take a lot of time. You don't have to worry about proportions, essentially. You can kind of even add a little bit if you want to mix it up. You want to add a little spice that you have in your life if you want to make it spicy or whatever. By all means, do it. It's absolutely delicious. Made it last night. I was going to eat right there, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to keep moving on here because we have a lot to talk about. But HelloFresh, excellent stuff. It was 11 o'clock at night, I think, by the time I finished. And I stuffed my face with 11 o'clock at night, even though I'm not supposed to do that. So go to HelloFresh.com/beat21. Use that promo code beat21. That's BEAT, lowercase beat, the number 2, number 1 for 21 free meals plus free shipping. That's America's number 1 meal kit. That is HelloFresh. Evan Valenti, Dan Greenberg. Since we last had a show, a lot of things happened. A lot of Celtics wins for good stuff. Also, new All-Star voting is out. Tatum climbing in the fan vote past Embiid. So we start with Tatum, Danny. Will he start?
Well, I think today is actually another, 3-for-1 voting day. So I think I look at it like this. I just wish the All-Star teams and the All-NBA teams just got rid of positions and just said, hey, here are the 5 best players in the conference. Because it is crazy that somebody between Giannis, Embiid, Tatum, and Durant, if he's probably going to miss it for injury, but just in theory, that one of them wouldn't start the All-Star game when all of them are going to be in the MVP conversation is ridiculous.
Okay.
My guess is he should start if he's able to, if Celtics fans show out and, help increase his lead over Embiid. But like I said, I'm past really even caring if he starts, comes off the bench. Listen, I know how good he is. You know how good he is. There's no difference, I think, between, incentives if you're a starter or a reserve, whatever. But until they abolish the positions for all this stuff, someone's going to get squeezed out. I think maybe the fan vote shouldn't be 50% because fans obviously don't really take it seriously. So I hope both him and Jaylen make it. I think his climb might be a little tougher. But listen, as long as they're healthy, as long as they just, don't party too much. I mean, it's in Salt Lake, so I don't know what kind of trouble you can get into in Utah. But I just want everyone to stay healthy and have a good time.
Yeah, it's really, at the end of the day, it's all we really care about after watching Kemba Walker's career get ruined.
That's what I mean. I have PTSD from that. Let's just
I got into a lot of fights with Raptors fans after that. I was like, you guys, I was like, look, you have to understand that they definitely told Nick Nurse not to play Kemba that much. That happens. That discussion happened. And if you guys want to ignore that, then fine. But that definitely, whenever you send anybody to an All-Star game, the first thing they say is, hey, can you not play my guy that much? I mean, it happens in baseball all the time. Managers are like, hey, can you not pitch my guy because he's supposed to start the first game after the All-Star break? So, you know what I mean?
Now, is Joe coaching? How do they do the coaching stats for that? I can't remember. Is it
you have to be the front team in first place if you didn't make the finals last year? So that or if you didn't coach it last year, I think it's if you didn't coach it last year and your team's in first place at the All-Star break, you get to coach. So I think Joe's in the line.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would just prefer him just to sit everybody.
Right.
Don't even play any of your own guys.
We're just going to take this off where you guys can help the rest of you guys play.
Maybe run Giannis into the ground or something. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, tire him out because apparently he's already tired. But Tatum's going to make it, whether he starts or comes off the bench. I guess it's just for street cred, and we'll see what happens when the media and the players vote. I mean, those 4 guys are all super popular. They're all incredible players. I guess we'll find out who resonates more amongst the players. But my guess is Durant will miss it because he'll be hurt, and then that will solve all the issues, kind of just like last year. Yeah. But if they all were to play, I don't know who you keep out. Yeah, I don't know either. But I'll say this, just to come back at you, Jaylen Brown's making the All-Star team. There's no question for me that Jaylen Brown's making the All-Star team. He has to make the All-Star team. I know. I would think so, but you just never know. Let me tell you something. I will have a full blown Twitter meltdown if Jaylen Brown doesn't make the All-Star team. Because they do what? It's
not position. When they do reserves, it doesn't matter about the positions, right? It's just.
Well, Jalen's kind of a hybrid position anyway. You could put him as a guard or a forward. Like, it don't matter. Just get him on the team. You know, the real, and I've been kind of asking some people this a little bit. The real question is how does Jaylen Brown get on the All NBA team? Because pick 6 guards. Because it's tough.
Well, I'm trying to think. When DeRozan made it, what was he listed at? Because I remember there was a difference between what he was as an all-star and what he was as an all-NBA player.
I think they put him in the mark, but I have to look at that. I don't know.
Yeah, so I think he may get they may try to wiggle him in there. But in terms of 6 guards, yeah, you're going to have the same.
It's tough.
You're going to have the same problem.
It's Curry, Luka, Halliburton, Shea, and then you're going to have some other
Donovan Mitchell in there. You got Jaylen.
I think there's like 5 blocks, and I would say Mitchell, Curry's going to come back and play, so he's going to make it. And this is a bearing major injury for anybody. Mitchell, Curry, Luka, Shea, and Halliburton are like locks for me. It's so it's one spot, and there's like 17 guys vying for it. And again, Jaylen. I mean, look, I love Jaylen, and for selfish reasons, I'd really like Jaylen to make an All-NBA team this season.
Correct. I would like him to sign that extension early, please. Thank you.
Please, for the love of everybody, I need Jaylen Brown to make an All-Star team. I don't want to do this. I know you don't want to do this thing where we spend an entire season trying to figure out what the hell Jaylen Brown's going to do.
You know, I'd be curious because, you know, I don't rule out the theory that Wick maybe put in a phone call when Tatum got snubbed so he wouldn't have to offer him the Supermax that one year. I wonder if he calls back and says, hey, I'm cashing in my favor. Time to slide in Jaylen because we don't want him to hit the open market.
Look, I don't really care if that phone call is what it takes. We need that phone call to get it done. Last thing in this little segment that we just did, the last thing in terms of what happened since the last time we talked, Tatum ones came out, allegedly. Allegedly, the first signature shoe for Jason Tatum came out. How'd it make you feel?
I'm not a huge shoe guy, so maybe I would ask them to, you know, maybe that was the soft launch to maybe get the initial reaction. That can't be his shoe. It just, really I'm sorry, it can't be his shoe. And I don't know if that's a Jordan brand thing. I know there were some pictures how it sort of looked like an earlier Jordan. It can't be his shoe. It just can't be his shoe. That's how you have to. Like, did he see that and did he maybe feel the pressure to just go along with it? Because, like, you know, he didn't know if he could push back. I don't know. I don't know how those meetings went. But I would like to see the options that got turned down to see if that's the one that they went with. I don't know if that can be his shoe.
I know it can't be his shoe. That can't be his shoe. I think it was like it was Brett Auerbach on Twitter who was like we're on to Tatum twos. We're not even to
we're on. You know, it's got to be such an awesome moment for him to finally have his own shoe. I just can't imagine he saw those and he was like, "Yep, this is it. We nailed it." I just can't imagine that to be the case.
It's not going to be. Trust me. We gotta make moves. We can't have our favorite son having a shoe that looks like that.
I know, we just can't do it. I'm going to get those in Marshalls in like 3 years. Like, we can't be doing it. Like, can't have that.
Valenti, Dan Greenberg, Barstool Sports, and we finish up with, I would say, what was a incredibly factual article that Dan had come out with after the halfway point, 41 games. Dan had 41 stone cold facts for the first 41 games of the season, and I would like to go over some of my favorites and, of course, some of my not favorites. But I lumped Dan into this one. The first one is just basically 3 stats and 1 stat. And they're all like win-loss.
There were a few of those. In there.
So 4, 5, and 6 on your list, I combined to 1. The Celtics lead the NBA in wins versus teams 500 or better with 13. And this is at the time of 41 games. They have won 2 more since then. So they now have 15 wins versus teams that are 500 or better, with the win over New Orleans and the win over the Nets last night. No other team at the time had more than 10. Conversely, they are 16-5 against teams under 500, so we'll make it 17-5 because they beat the Spurs. Those 5 losses, second fewest in the NBA, and Boston is just 1 of 3 teams over 500 on the road 13, now 14 and 7, 15 and 7, 15 and 7, right? Because they beat the Spurs on the road and the Nets.
But Spurs, so they're 15 and 7. I can look it up real quick. But yeah, they should be 15 and 7 now.
They're good. They're good.
Best in the NBA is the point.
Oh yeah, all we're getting here is the Celtics have won a lot of games, but they've won a lot of games against all competition. It's not like they've won only home games like the Warriors or a bunch of road games, or they've beaten up on the bad teams and haven't beaten the good teams, or they've beaten good teams but they haven't beaten the bad teams they put on their competition level. Like, no, they've just flat out beaten everybody.
And I think why I wanted to include that is after the Oklahoma City loss, I think there was a little bit of this narrative of like, oh, the Celtics have this huge problem when they play down to their competition and they just lose to all these bad teams. Yes, there have been games, 5 of them, that they've lost to an under 500 team. But this is not what we saw last year. I think they had 10 or 11 double-digit or losses against teams under 500. And not all those teams under 500 are created equal. Like the Bulls fit that description, but they're better than the Thunder. So I just wanted to point out that, like, yes, they're normal. They have games where they don't show up or they whatever, just like every other team over the course of 82 games. But when you take a step back and you see that they actually have the second fewest losses against bad teams in the NBA, maybe it's not much of a deal as was being made after that Thunder loss, which was horrific. I mean, they gave up 150 points. That's inexcusable. But I do not think they have the same sort of lack of mental focus against under 500 teams that we've seen in previous, seasons. There are going to be games where they lose. Like, they're normal. That just happens. But when you factor it in that they're also beating everybody that's good, they're the only team that's really killing people on the road outside of Brooklyn. Like, they're fitting the profile of what you want as a contender. And I just feel like you have a bad loss here and there. That doesn't undo everything you've done the entire season.
Yeah, the road record for me is I think the most important thing. I mean, teams wins over teams that are 500. That's awesome, but you could be 21-20. That counts as a win over teams that are 500. I don't know I know you've done it because you've done the research. I don't think people have looked into the road records of some of these teams in the NBA. Like, you look at the top of the East, C's 14-7, Nets 14-8, Bucks 11-10 on the road, and the Knicks, surprisingly, are 12-8 on the road. So shout out the Knicks, who are putting together a pretty fun season. But like, in terms of teams that are over 500 on the road, that's it. That is it. Cavs 9-12 on the road. The 76ers 8-9 on the road. Nuggets 10-10. Grizzlies 10-10. Pelicans 8-2. Mavs 8-12 for the Pelicans. 8-13 for the Mavs. The most important one, the most shocking one, is Golden State is 3-16 on the road. And guess what, Dan? Last time I checked, you have to win some road games at some point to win a title. And if you're one of 4 teams in the league that have above 500 on the road, that says something about your team, I think, personally.
Not only that, but you have to remember, I'd say of all their road wins, let's say they have 15 of them. I'd say off the top of my head, 4 or 5 of them at minimum are coming on back-to-backs, which you're not even having Al Horford for. So not only are they winning on the road, but they're winning on the road on back-to-backs without a major contributor to their starting lineup. And some of those were before Rob even came back as well. So it really just goes to show you, like, they're building a bulletproof resume of it doesn't matter if they're home. It doesn't matter if they're on the road. It doesn't matter if they're rested on back-to-backs. Good teams, bad teams, you roll the ball out, the Celtics are probably going to beat you. And that's just, it's a great problem to have.
This comes via Sean Grande at 4:00 in the morning.
I saw that last night. Yeah.
I love Sean. I don't know how Sean does this. I don't know what his sleep schedule is like. It must be crazy. But Sean, if you don't know, Sean Grande at 4:00 in the morning will just throw out a bunch of awesome stats for us.
I call them Grande bombs. I love a good Grande bomb.
Grande bomb. Last night, just to piggyback off the back-to-backs things, and this has been a staple of Brad Stevens' team since he got to the league, and it's like mind-blowing how unbelievable how good the Celtics are on second games of back-to-backs. on 0 days rest this season, Grandy crushed the stat. C's are 7-0 with a plus 12.3 point differential. Now, it does matter who you play at the end. Like, there's factors into that, right? You could be playing, the Nets are a good team to play in a back-to-back, but sometimes you get like the Rockets or the Wizards or the Hornets. But like, regardless, again, no Al Horford in those games. What they've done is they've staggered Al and Rob in these, where Rob doesn't play one, Al doesn't play the other. But like, they are blowing teams out when they're playing in the second game.
Keep going though, because the best part of Grandy's stat is the last one.
Well, all right, so I got to pull that up. Hang on a minute. I had thought that was the best one. So
well, not best one, but the most mind blowing is his third part.
So you have 0 days rest. You have 1 day's rest. 22-5, 8.4 plus scoring differential. 2 or more days. This is staggering to me. 2-7 with a minus 5.6 scoring differential.
Horrendous. They're the worst team in basketball when they get rested. Makes no sense.
Well, I guess that's good because you're not going to get a ton of rest in the playoffs. So that's great. I don't know.
Well, you would think, right? Like, okay, Al's older. He's getting his rest. Tatum and Brown, they're finally getting rest. They're shooting like 40% from the floor and 30% from three on 2 days rest. Makes no sense.
And maybe, hopefully, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I can't explain it.
I'm pretty sure of those, what was it, 2-7? Like a big portion of those are home games. So it's like they're not even traveling with rest. They're at home and rested and still can't buy a bucket. Doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to matter too much because they're just deadly when they're tired.
I know.
I don't know. Well, again, the war of attrition. Hopefully that'll work out best for the season, the end here. But yeah, that stat via Grandy, ridiculous. Next stat that I love, number 11, maybe my favorite one of the entire 41. It's one of the next two, but number 11, Marcus Smart has an assist percentage of 38.1. with only a 16.5% usage rate. In comparison, Dame Lillard, 31.8 assist percentage, which is less than Smart, with a 31% usage rate. Of those players with that low of usage, only Mike Conley has a higher assist percentage. And this is a huge win for the guy that I think is probably
the big one. I smiled when I typed that one out. That was a big one for me.
You take more Smart flack than I think anybody on the internet. I personally, at least you display it more than anybody else because you're sick of everybody's BS. This one is a huge win for those like myself, yourself, who was like, Marcus Smart can actually play point guard, and he's been not only do the stats bear that out, but if you watch the games where Smart doesn't play, look at how dysfunctional the offense is. Like, they don't get into their sets as quick. He is like, they talk about the glue guys, the connector guys. Smart went from, I guess, a chucker, when he was early in his career, to like the ultimate connector guy for the Jays in like 2 seasons. And just his development over the years has produced this guy who's, you have to have him on the floor at the end of games. Like, I don't care how bad he's shooting. I don't care what kind of game he's having from a turnover perspective. He just has to be on the floor at all. And this turnover rate, I think you put in there, is also super low this year. So it's been like just the best Marcus Smart year ever. It's awesome. It's
interesting because you do have to be on it. Like, there are times where the offense will stall when he's on the floor. Like, he's not a flawless point guard. Like, he's a normal player in that regard. But we're at the point now where, a season and a half into it, call it, 150 games, including the playoffs, of him in this role. There's simply no denying that he is one of the most premier facilitating point guards in not only the East, but in the league. He's, like you said, the assist percentage is fantastic. His career high, 7.2 a game, phenomenal. But the biggest thing is when you watch him play, he understands where everybody on the floor wants the ball. And that is the true job of a point guard, of, not only making the right play, but getting the ball to guys in situations that set them up for success. Just look at the opening play last night. He draws the crowd, has the beautiful no-look pass behind his head to Rob for a dunk. So it's just the continuity that they have playing together is why I think he thrives in this role, because he understands how everyone else around him plays, what their strengths are, and when they need to get the ball. And if you watch him in his decision-making in terms of, should I shoot it or keep the ball moving? Since he became the starting point guard of this roster, he is passing that shot way more than he's taking it. And we've seen what it has done for their offense. We've seen what it's done to their team record. And we saw what it did for them to finally break through and get to an NBA Finals. He just has to make sure he keeps his turnovers in check and he keeps his cool when things are maybe not going his way. But Marcus Smart as a starting point guard is validating everything people like you and I have been saying for the last, 5 years.
Yeah, Smart's field goal attempts per game, because this is the one that bugs everybody, the lowest since 2018, 2019.
Yeah, under 10, 9.4. I don't know, it might be on your list, but there's a fourth quarter shooting stat in there that I also found.
I did not have that in there. Why don't you enlighten us?
So at the time I wrote this blog, he had taken, I think it was 50. So everyone always says, oh, Marcus Smart needs to learn his role and not shoot in the fourth quarter and blah, 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 blah. On the season, and when I wrote this blog, he had taken 54 shots in the fourth quarter. Payton Pritchard, who doesn't play, has taken 57 shots in the fourth quarter. So
yeah, garbage time.
So don't tell me that Marcus Smart isn't accepting his role and doesn't know how to fit when he's literally the ninth guy on the roster in fourth quarter shooting. Just shows that you're not watching and you don't want to get over an old narrative. That's
also,
all.
Shout out Payton Pritchard getting shots up at the end of garbage time, man. If he's got
and all of his are garbage time, but it just goes to show you, this dude barely plays, and he has more fourth quarter shots than Smart does on the season.
Right. Final stat I liked, and this, again, it's either 1A or 1B here. Number 16, Jayson Tatum currently has his highest free throw attempt rate of his career at 40%. This was up from last year's 30%, which is a career high. Not rocket science. Going to the line 8-9 times a game has unlocked Tatum's 30-point per game scoring ability, and there's no denying that anymore. The one thing about Tatum is, again, he's attacking the rim a lot more, but the way he feathers through and gets through guys and finishes these crazy acrobatic layups. He had one against, I think it was the Pelicans where it was last night where he had that ridiculous floater, I think over somebody with a tear.
Nick Claxton, the finger roll.
It's now he's starting to do this. Again, the fact that he's attacking the basket, being more aggressive, and that results in good things. That's finally clicked for him. And I think Hanlon talked about, for the first time in Tatum's life, he's had a really normal offseason where he can actually work on stuff. And that was one of the things they worked on, was getting downhill, getting into the free throw line, or at least trying to finish through contact. That's where they worked on a lot of stuff, and it's unlocked his scoring prowess.
Yeah, you could even make the case he still doesn't even get an adequate whistle either. So yes, he has a career high in free throw rate and free throws, but it should probably be a little bit higher if you just gave him a normal whistle, not even superstar whistle. Just give him a normal whistle, and it's probably better.
I think you'll see his free throws go up in the playoffs too, which is going to be even scarier for teams. If he's going to the line 10, 11, 12
times,
like Embiid status, that's going to be fun. But Tatum, again, the story this season, there's a lot of stories this season, but Tatum being an MVP candidate, first team All-NBA player, that's number one. And as much as I want to love Smart, and I do love Smart, and that it's super important that assist percentage, considering how low usage he is. Again, it proves that he's just been a valuable player this year.
Right. To me, that tells me he doesn't have the ball a lot, but when he does, he's doing the thing that everybody wants him to do. So I don't understand the hate that he still gets.
Any big misses in terms of the ones that you like that I didn't put on there?
The fourth quarter one from Smart was great. I like the one that was Tatum's unassisted threes have gone down.
Yeah.
It was at 45 or 43% or 45% last year to in the mid-30s this year. That tells me two things. One, his shooting has regressed a little bit from deep. but also we're not seeing as many isolation, hold the clock, sidestep threes. We're seeing his threes come off ball movement, come off, spacing the floor, making the right play. That I thought was interesting, because usually when the offense stalls is when they get into bad isolation habits. And I think their isolation also dipped from like 8.7% to 7.2 or 7.3, something like that. So they're moving the ball better. They're playing less isolation. And for Tatum specifically, even though we know he can make that shot, he's not as dependent on it as he had been in previous seasons.
Specifically to that point, Shaq talked about this last night. I did the thing where I watched the game on NBC, but tuned into TNT for the halftime.
Yeah.
Sometimes a waste of your time with that crew, especially last night when they spent the first 5 minutes talking about Ben Simmons. I was like, guys, they're losing the game. Like, come on. Anyway, the one thing that Shaq highlighted, it was like, look, Tatum's ability to trust his teammates that they will either A, make a good play in their shot selection, or B, get him the ball back. He trusts his teammates to find him if they think that he needs to get it again. His ability to get off the ball, work off the ball, get it back, and get a good shot. That's, again, talk about free throw rate and that. Those are the two big things with Tatum. Like the one, people talk about Trae Young, where Trae Young doesn't know how to work off the ball. That's been his biggest problem in terms of like an off ball. And that's what makes Steph Curry so great, is Steph is so willing to give it up and then work to get it back.
Yep.
That's when you talk about star to superstar, finding a way to impact your teammates in a positive way without doing much, or by doing stuff off the ball. That's huge. And that stat shows that without question, that Tatum's just taking another leap.
Yeah, so that one, and then the last one that I loved was that they were, and this may have changed, I have to go back and look, but they were 12-5 in clutch time games. So if you remember, this team could not win a game in clutch time to save their lives to start last season.
I might have ranted about that after the Knicks loss. I might have been like,
yeah. So I think that's like a 70% win percentage. At the time of the blog, it was like the third highest clutch time win percentage in the league. That is something that, when you remember that they're like, 1-3 in overtime, they've lost some close games, but 12-5 shows me that they're figuring out how to execute down the stretch. So even if you're annoyed that maybe they're, playing too close a game with the Spurs or the Bulls or whatever, we're seeing them come through and find ways to execute. And those are the reps that are going to matter in the postseason, to where now it's not like the Celtics need to blow somebody out to beat them. We're seeing them come through in close games, and that is not something we saw through the first half last season.
Right. And look, the team's 31-12, so kind of hard to find bad ones when you're 31-12. There are some bad ones, and actually, I'm going to lead off, kind of piggybacking yours. The C's are 1-2 in games decided by 3 points or less, and are 1-3 in overtime. Like, small stat.
Yep.
4 games, but they're not great. It
tells their story. Yeah, it helps tell their story.
The Cavs, overtime losses came early in the season. Maybe now, a little bit different story. We'll see. They got to play Cleveland 2 more times this year, so I can't wait to see those, to see if they can shake that one off. The Miami game, Jimmy Butler was just out of his friggin' mind in that game, and I'm so sick of Jimmy Butler, man. So sick of Jimmy Butler, but he had tough shot after tough shot after tough shot after tough shot in that game. So you tip your cap. But, to piggyback off your stat, that's the only – when it goes to overtime, essentially, when you flip a coin, Boston hasn't done well. But it's that. And then the last one is this one – there's a positive spin to it, but at the same time, they could get better. Number 39, on average, the Celtics have 404.2 touches a game. Of that number, just 21.6 are paint touches. That's 19th in the league. I would love to see if this team could get in the paint a little bit more, especially with the guys they have with Jaylen, Jayson, Brogdon, White. They have guys that can penetrate, but to be fair, even with all that being said, on paint touches, Celtics are shooting 69%, which is 3rd in the league, and their 4th fewest turnovers when it comes to paint touches. So when they get there, good things happen.
Yep.
You just don't get there all the time. Just
right. That was my angle of it. It's like, okay, when they do it, they were elite at it. So, just do it a little bit more. I'm not someone who says, oh, they need to stop shooting threes, blah, blah, blah. Love and trust Missoula ball and just get over it. Okay. The point is, there are times during a game you can pick your spots. I personally like it more like at the beginning of the game, in the beginning of the third quarter, attack the paint, because whether it's White, Brogdon, Smart, Jaylen, Tatum, they have such good paint finishers. You're taking control of the ball, which tells me, if you remember the freaking playoffs, every time they would put the ball on the floor, it seemed like it was getting stripped once they got into the paint. They've cleaned that up, both Tatum and Brown specifically, and you just have guys that are elite in that zone. Let's just, 19th in the league. I get you shoot a lot of threes. You can still get up, just be a top 10 team in paint touches and see what happens.
I'm assuming number that'll go up per game with the addition of Rob back. I think, the alley-oops are just going to be there all the time. So that'll help a little bit. But that being said, I think.
Yeah, I was surprised to see 19th. I thought was a little low. I was expecting them to be, maybe on the outside of the top 10, just because of how good their guards are at driving. Right. So when I saw 19th, I was like, oh, we gotta clean that up a little.
I missed any negative ones?
I'm trying to think.
That's tough. It's 41, so it's hard to keep track of them.
Yeah,
I'll rephrase it like this.
Put it in there. Their December offense was pretty gross. I think that was like 28.
That happens.
Yeah.
And people need to understand that that's going to happen. The teams are going to have bad games, have bad stretches. It's 82 games. It's going to happen. I guess I'll rephrase it this way. Seas are now 43 games into the season, not 41. So they're 2 wins, so that's great. 31-12, halfway through. Mm-hmm. Are the Celtics about where you thought they'd be? Better? Because, obviously worse. You could have thought that too. Where, in terms of halfway through, how's it gone so far?
In terms of their record and how they're playing, I'd say they're probably around where I thought, just because I was pretty convinced over the last 5-6 months of last season that they figured out their formula. So even though they had Ime, gone and a new coach, it's like this core had been around where they know what the formula is for them to be successful. It was just a matter of, will they keep doing it? And once we got, the first 5 or 6 games and you saw them play, it looked the exact same, right? So I'm not surprised that a team that didn't lose any major players, that added in the offseason a pretty good player in Brogdon, whose core has been together forever. It's almost like, and then once Joe proved that this wasn't too big for him, I'd say they're right along, because I did the last 41 games to end the season last year. They were 31-10, and the first 41 this year, they were 29-12. So it's like they're playing the exact same brand of basketball. So I'm not too surprised on it, and I don't think it's something that isn't sustainable, because they've now done it over 100-something games if you include last year's playoff run. So I think this is just who they are. It's now going to be a matter of, can they make sure to get over whatever mental hurdles they have in the playoffs, because the formula is there, the talent's there. There's no excuse for them to not be successful when it matters most.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When the season started, I did not expect them to be at the halfway point in first place. I just didn't. Considering the injuries that they have and considering the new coach, I just thought there was just no way.
Well, I would say, I don't know if I thought they would be in first place, because, Milwaukee may have been 32-9, but I just, from where they are in terms of their record, doesn't surprise me. Right. The fact that they have a 4-game lead over everybody is a little surprising, because I thought teams like Milwaukee would be a little bit better. Teams like the Heat would be better. So I didn't expect that, but the record isn't a surprise.
I guess that's a better way to put it. I'm just surprised that they're the 1 seed somewhat comfortably at this particular moment, when I thought that they would be like, you know what? We'll just try and get the 2 or 3 seed, get home court for round 1, go on the road rounds 2 and 3. That's the path in my head. I thought this was going to go. And now
I was always hoping that their playoff run and how important home court was, and how much of kind of a prayer it was that you won a game 7 on the road to make the finals.
Basically.
I thought, to me, they would say, okay, we want the number one overall seed, not just in the East, but if we are fortunate enough to make the finals, we want home court in the finals. Right. So it's nice. I mean, they could still let go of the rope and that could change. But I thought their run last year sort of gave them the mindset of, we saw what happened when Giannis had to come on and into our building in a game 7. When you're in those game, coin flip type games, it was nice for them to win in Miami, but odds say that you're not going to win too many game 7s on the road. So just take care of business now and have that in your own building.
I thought they would maybe throw that away and be like, you know what? They've won game 6 on the road against Giannis. They won games. I was like, maybe this team doesn't really care about where they play. Maybe just, the circumstance has to be right for them to really come through. But if they're going to be the 1 seed, I'm not going to be mad about it. That's all I'm going to tell you. I'm going to be thrilled that, again, if you're a Chiefs fan and you're not thrilled right now about this team, then you need to go touch grass or something. I don't know. It's just the negativity will continue to bother me, whether it's about Jaylen Brown or this team in general or whatever. I have better things to do with my life. There's just enjoy the ride, guys. That was awesome. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate you jumping on what was, I think, again, different format for us, but something I wanted to try out just because, again, being once a week, it's hard to react to everything all at once, but some important games that happened while we were gone. The 72 points or 73 points combined for the Jays. And then, of course, the bench last night was spectacular. So wanted to highlight that. Dan Greenberg, Barstool Sports, was at Stool Greenie, right, on Twitter?
That's Stool Greenie. That's right.
Check out his blog. It's tremendous. The ultimate Marcus Smart defender. No question about it. No question about it. Shout out to everybody. Make sure you rate, subscribe to the show on YouTube, on iTunes, on Stitcher. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Shout out to HelloFresh, our new sponsor. Use the promo code BEAT21. That's BEAT, the number 2, number 1 at HelloFresh.com/BEAT21 for 21 free meals and free shipping. So much free stuff. Get after it. Dan Greenberg, myself, thanks to Adam Kaufman. Thanks to my guy, Amit, who is just the best in terms of getting our stuff ready to go. He's the man. And thank you guys. You guys have yourselves a great day. Greenie, thanks a lot, bud.
All right, guys. Anytime.
Appreciate it.